Okay, looks like we are live. What's going on, everybody? Robert Phoenix, just out of the shower, by the way, if you can't tell. It is the 26th of January, and we find ourselves in another day in another chapter of the so called Great Awakening, some of which I'm going to be talking about today, and try to wrap our heads around what is the value of waking up in the nightmare. This is something that I'll be discussing. Amongst many other things and events that are currently happening theoretically. So, how was everybody this morning? Let's see. We have Michael Pafford. Good morning, Michael. T. Jordan. What's going on, T. Jordan? Good to see you, Thomas. MK's in the house. There's Miranda Couch. And there is, let's see. Yes. Ashanti Edwards. Good to see you. Kestrel, Fifth Wall Radio is here. Leon Luis. Leon, I hope you're doing okay. Leon's father passed away last week, and so if you can give him a little support in Chatlandia, that would be great. And of course, we all have complex relationships with our fathers, as I discussed yesterday, especially as it relates to the so-called father of this country, whoever sits in the Oval Office, with a with in many cases unresolved relationships with our fathers get projected onto the people who are theoretically in power and control and authority. And that was a pretty clear example of what's been happening over the last few months here. Anyway, Leon, I hope you're doing better. We'll talk later this week. My man, EJMC Michael Cisternino in the house. What's going on, Papa? David Olmstead. Hi, David. Looking to win the Powerball soon. Staying positive. Anna's not taking any losers anymore. David, I think Masaki has technology for you. Masaki has technology for Powerball winners. You should check in with Masaki. Seriously. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Christy, what's going on, Christy? Good to see you. Hope you're staying warm up there in your part of the world. Laura D, the lovely and talented Jonas, Nancy Hardy, Ian Barber. What's going on, Ian? There's Lils, Dabisu, my man, Uncle Glenn. I guess New Mexico is now complaining over Joe Biden's rough treatment with the gas and oil industry. We're going to get into the executive actions that Joe Biden has signed, not them specifically, but the number of them, which is record-breaking. We have a record-breaking president, or whoever this character is, or whatever title he holds in our midst. Isn't it great that we have a record-breaking somebody? We can be proud of that. Let's see. Victoria V, double V's here. Hello. Hey, there's Lynn. Thanks for the reminder button. I do it for you, Lynn. Specifically for you. WC Ray, glad you were paroled early. Yes, we are working on new things. Natalie Folks, hello. The only interesting place on YouTube is right here. Hey. Appreciate that. There's some other good YouTube channels, I think. You know what? I do enjoy watching Tim Pool. Not really for Tim Pool. I enjoy Tim's guests for the most part. Not all of them. One of his guests, a person he's had on a number of times, is Michael Malice. And I watched, that show Cash Cab. This is weird. So Cash Cab, that TV show, I guess, what was it on? Like Discovery Channel or one of those History Channel. The show where you get into a cab in New York City and that guy takes you around, but the guy who supposedly was the George Floyd killer in Minneapolis. A lot of people claim that it was him. If it wasn't him, Derek Chauvin. By the way, what happened to those guys? What happened to those cops in Minneapolis? Question mark, right? Like, what happened to the people in in Georgia, the guys in Georgia who supposedly, killed that dude running around their neighborhood trying to steal shit, right? Like, what happened to them? Oh, and by the way, the cops in Louisville, right? Was it Louisville? Yeah, the cops in Louisville, the ones that supposedly shot Breonna Taylor, they're all free. There's really no like justice and no follow up around any of this stuff. So the cops who supposedly killed George Floyd, what's going on there? Kyle Rittenhouse was released. Nary a mention about that in the mainstream media. However, Nick Sandmann did fire Lynn Wood. He did it publicly, public execution on Twitter yesterday. And apparently Nick Sandmann now works for Mitch McConnell. How about that? Let's see. Who else we have here? Nurse Tara 04. Hello. Good to see you. Ralph Winter. London calling in the house. JMP Love. What's going on? What's going on, Jacqueline? Good to see you. H. Settles. Good morning from Florida. Well, good morning to you from Texas. Bo Blake in the house. Mary Grether. Let's see. There's my man, Steve. See, if you're available, I'm going to give you a shout after the show. Let's see who else we have here. Got my government check. Swimming in the Benjamins now. Woohoo. Somebody got it. Claire, what's going on, Claire? Claire, soon to be a resident of the Lone Star State. Well, soon, depending upon your definition of soon. But we'll be here and welcoming you with open arms, Claire. Steve Letro, he says, hi all, we got a dusting of snow last night. First time I saw snow in 5 years. Yeah, we've had a polar vortex descending down upon us. Olympia Fonseca, buenos dias from San Diego. Hey, what's going on, Olympia? Nice to see you. Welcome. There's my girl, Emily, the Technobrat in the house. Yeah, we each got $600 yesterday. Ooh. My Saturn return having dental issues. Interesting. Well, Saturn rules the entire skeletal structure, including your teeth, which are part of your skeletal structure as well. Oh, that's right. Emily is moving to Texas as well. Rock Castaldo had something. He had something interesting to share with me. He said, now Ra's pretty out there, but if there's a guy that you can kind of trust on out there stuff, it's Ra. Okay, he's legitimate. And he said that he saw a pyramid-like structure on the etheric plane over Austin, and that it was literally attracting people to that area for a very specific purpose and reason. So, Emily, you must be responding to the great attractor now over the city of Austin. Let's see what else we have here. Bring the snow to Arkansas. I haven't had a good snow in 5 years. We had snow a couple of weeks ago. It snowed the day that I picked up little Ringo. I'll never forget that day. But it was okay. It was all a timing issue, and Ringo is on a little patch of heaven. Let me tell you that right now. Let's see. Lee Michelle says, love Ra. Ra's the man. Ursula Hauser. Checking in from the PDX. What's going on, Ursula? Good to see you. In Western North Carolina, it's supposed to be 70 today. Not normal. Well, it's going to be warm here today. We have a warming trend here in the Hill Country. Hey, Robert, did you try playing some Beatles or Stones to Ringo? Maybe he's more Mick than a Ringo. Ringo, I think, could have gone either way at that point. He was a character. He was totally a character. I lived in Boston for a while, suburb in Norwood. Snow, the poor man's fertilizer. It's snowing in London. Looks like they got an inch of snow in Albuquerque. Wow. An inch of snow is something to write home about. Let's see. It snowed in Grass Valley Sunday night. So how about that? We're getting. Hey, there's Renee. Good to see you, Renee. What's up with secession? It's probably going to happen. That's my sense. I think that's where this decentralization thing is in gear right now and has been for a while. Let's see. Joe Mama's here. Hello, Joe Mama. The etheric pyramid is the piles of cash the richest man Elon Musk is bringing to Austin. Could be. You know, the one thing about this whole migration to Texas, which is a little disturbing, is that Silicon Valley is coming to Texas. And Silicon Valley absolutely ruined fucking California. Just ruined it. Now, I was there. I worked in Silicon Valley. And from 2000. So I had interesting connections with Silicon Valley, both directly and indirectly. From 1997, actually it was the end of 1996, to, let's see, October roughly of 1999. So through 3 years, I worked for a magazine. I guess work is, you can use that term loosely, Mondo 2000. And if you don't know what Mondo 2000 is, it was one of the most cutting edge zines, periodicals of all time. I got there at the end of the party, but I was there for, it was sort of like, you know, the time of the party where almost everybody's gone. Most of the good liquor is gone. You're kind of searching around for what's over here, right? There's still a few things left. There's still a few snacks left, but they're dwindling. And people are still trying to convince themselves that the party is still happening, but really the party ended a couple hours ago. That's the phase that I was there for, but it was still interesting. And during that time was when they had the internet boom, which I've talked about before. And it was every week there was a new company with a new kind of bullshit gimmick product. Some of them were kind of interesting. Some of them were ahead of their time, but they had all this VC money floating around. They had all these, openings, right? They had these grand openings for their products, most of which were just pure garbage. But it was a way for people to get rich quick, especially the people that were doing the arbitrages, which were the people like Bear Stearns and Solomon Brothers. And you know those people, the ones that did the whole mortgage thing. Anyway, so it was interesting being a part of Silicon Valley from that perspective. And a lot of the kind of early adopters of Silicon Valley would circulate through Mondo 2000, people like John Perry Barlow, who we did a pretty big piece on. And I used to see Barlow all over the place. If you don't know who John Perry Barlow is, he wrote the Declaration of Independence for the Internet. He wrote that at Davos. He was also the founder of the EFF, the Electronic Freedom Foundation, one of the early pioneers of the Well, which was one of the first online communities in the world, and coming out of mostly Marin County, him and Stuart Brand. So a lot of these, early first generation, early adopters of the computer world would circulate through Mondo 2000. So that was one connection. And the other connection was, of course, these companies that were just, propping up these, ridiculous business models to get in and get some of that startup cash. And then eventually worked for one of those companies. It actually had a really good idea. It just didn't have the acceptance of the major labels. And that was a company called eMusic, where we actually sold downloadable MP3s. We were the first company to do that on a mass scale. And not long after I started working there, Napster came out and sort of blew up our model. But I was there for 5 years. So I was inside Silicon Valley. In the early days of the internet, it was pretty exciting. There was a lot of flim flam. It was kind of like the Wild West. But there was a sense of that first kind of, the culture, the computer culture in Silicon Valley really comes out of the psychedelic culture. You can just trace the roots, like Stuart Brand, who's part of that, was part of the Merry Pranksters. Steve Jobs was a big acid head. Steve Wozniak. A lot of these people came out of the psychedelic community. And then and I think even one of the guys, I forget his name now, was it Dvorak, or one of the guys that was one of the creators, big creators of LSD, like cooking LSD, moved into Silicon Valley and became very, very wealthy. So a lot of the Silicon Valley culture comes out of that world. And, then there's connections with things like Silicon Valley, the psychedelic community, Burning Man. And it was kind of interesting, I have to say. I mean, the early days were kind of interesting. People were into this idea that this medium was an equalizer, that it would allow people to communicate and have a whole new level of sort of equalizing the playing field. And it was very naive in a lot of ways. And it was very much like the Wild West. There weren't a lot of rules. You could get away with a lot of different things. And look where we are now. Now it's a gulag. They turned the Wild West into a gulag. So, but we're still doing our best here and taking advantage of the tools as they are available to us. Who else do we have here? Claire says Silicon Valley types of the Bay Area bubble ruined San Francisco. Well, they're coming here now. They're coming here. HP's coming here. Oracle, I think, is coming here. And they're coming here because there's no state tax. That's number one. And number two, I think this is probably going to be part of a very different system in the future moving forward. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be able to hold this idea of the United States together. I mean, we know that there's a dialogue going on, that the country's bankrupt, and there's all this there's a narrative that says that at some point, Michael Flynn says it's January 30th. This is when the new drop happens, right? January 30th. Then we hear March 4th. Somebody sent me a text last night, and they told me that they have friends who had dinner at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. And guess who was there? Trump was there. What was he doing? He was sitting on a couch all by himself. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Let's see. Apparently Newsom backed off lockdowns. We're going to talk about that, probably because recalling him is becoming more really shady. I actually have an article queued up ready to go. Sue, you're on it. There's Charles Mazak. There he is. What's going on, Charles? Dominion voting machines must be eliminated. Also, mail-in voting. The system has gotten too big. It's become too big. Sorry. It's just become too big. There's no way that they can corral this thing now. No, there's no way that they can corral voting. And I don't think there's any way that they're ever going to have another so-called free election. Not with the way that this thing has unfolded with the Senate and the House and SCOTUS and POTUS and VOPUS and in the hocus pocus. I don't think there's any way that they could, like the midterms. Good luck. Good luck. Do you think that this administration has that they have any stake in the game in free and fair elections? And what happens if the so-called 11 million people who Biden and company are going to theoretically let into the country automatically become voters? You don't even have to throw an election at that point. 11 million people on a federal level, on a national level, that's a lot of votes. So the system itself, the tape has run out. The tape is run out. It's like that old reel-to-reel recorder. It's just going around and around and around and around and around. The tape is over. So again, we're in the midst of this very strange purgatorial period, the purgatoria, where we're in between worlds, and it's difficult for a lot of people to have a firm grasp on so-called reality at this time, and I can relate. These are very strange times, and the uncertainty of the strange times makes it even more difficult. But there are certain things that we can see that are not necessarily encouraging. I will talk about those, and I'm going to read an email today from somebody who has some very interesting questions, and I think they're worth asking and at least trying to answer to the best of our ability. And of course, of a few stops along the way where there may be a little bit of humor and a little bit of scratching your forehead, so that your morning might be just a tad more interesting. Let's see, the Whole Earth catalog. Yeah, that was Stuart Brand is still around, man. Mr. Long now is still around. Danny J says, I'm a driver in New England. And I just saw his, where did he go? We got a fast. Hey, Brenda, nice to see you. We got a fast chat today. Anyone watch Brent Pella on YouTube? His Newsom impression cracks me up. Let's see. Elections are a thing of the past. Yes, I agree. We don't cross state lines. Something is up. Oh, interesting. I'm a driver in New England, and we're doing all the routes so we don't cross state lines. AOC will get elected in Utah. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Let's see. House Resolution 1. What else do we have here? I think sometimes they end programs because they've served their purposes. Absolutely. Donna, what's going on, Donna? Good to see you. Hey, say hello to Donna. Donna's a dear friend from the Philadelphia area. Give her a nice welcome. Arizona Sue. Yep, Purgatorial, Northeast and Pisces is exact square the GE and Sag nodes. Yes. Gemini, fogging up the direction compass. Indeed. When celebs lose their usefulness, they become worth more. You know what we didn't talk about? We didn't talk about Hank Aaron's death. We did not talk about Hank Aaron's death. And then subsequently, Larry King's death. And they both have something in common. Hank Aaron was the home run king. He was the home run king. And Larry King was the king of talk radio. So we had two deaths that happened within 24 hours. And we have this king imagery. Hank Aaron, of course, took the shot. And what was it? Now, I heard it was 17 days. Maybe it was 18 days. 17 days seems to fit a more interesting narrative. But we do know that it was a little more than 2 weeks after the fact that Hank Aaron got his second shot. And old Hammerin' Hank ain't hammered anymore. He got hammered. He's gone. So we have Hank Aaron, the home run king. Well, he was the home run king until Barry Bonds, the Leo, came around and broke his record, which is illegitimate. Hank Aaron broke Babe Ruth's record without taking steroids. Now, they did take greenies. Baseball players did take greenies. And this is one of the dirty little secrets of Major League Baseball. A schedule, by the way, which is just inhuman. 168 games. So back in the old days, there would be 2 urns of coffee. There would be basically leaded and then turbocharged. And the turbocharged coffee was coffee that had greenies, which are amphetamines, in the coffee. And every major league clubhouse had the 2 types of coffee you could get. So I'm sure Hank Aaron, amongst many other baseball players, drank the leaded coffee. But there were no steroids. Barry Bonds, plenty of steroids to pass around. And what's really interesting about the Barry Bond, the home run that Barry Bonds hit to break Hank Aaron's all-time home run record, the audio went out. Mysteriously, the audio went out. So there's no call. There is no official call of that home run. So Hank Aaron is probably the legitimate home run king. And if you count steroids, I don't really give a shit about steroids. I mean, the world is on drugs. And I always found that to be just hypocritical about Major League Baseball. Like, you've got this entire pharmaceutical industry which wants to sell you every fucking drug under the sun. And yet they want to retain their purity about what you put in your body for Major League Baseball and steroids. Give me a break. It's ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. Anyway, Hank Aaron, number 44, is no longer with us. The home run king. And Larry King, the king of talk radio, within 24 hours. Both of whom, by the way, had strong ties to the city of Atlanta. Hank Aaron, of course, playing the majority of his career for the Atlanta Braves. He also played for the Milwaukee Braves. And then the final 2 years of his career, he played for the Milwaukee Brewers, and he was a designated hitter. Got a few more home runs out of that gig. And Larry King worked for Ted Turner, and of course, Ted Turner, based out of Atlanta with his TNT network. So an Atlanta connection as well. If you haven't figured out the math on the Hank Aaron thing, you're not paying attention. And he basically got the shot so he could inspire other people inside the black African-American community to take the shot. To show them, give them confidence. Hey, this is okay. I'm doing this. You could do it too. I don't think that worked out so well. And I think the shot program is having difficulties around the world. It's not getting as much traction as it could be or should be. And I should. I don't believe in the should. Should stop having old, useless, logical data. Here's your should. But people are paying attention. They're waking up. And in California, they decided to put a halt on the what was it, the which one is not the, is it Moderna? No, it wasn't Moderna. I think it was Moderna. They decided to pump the brakes on that for a while. Here, they're gung ho. Oh my God. They were going crazy out here over the weekend. They were looking for volunteers. It's sort of like they want to have a parade now in this town. They want to have a hypodermic parade. These are the sad metrics of success in our culture. To be able to roll something out and have it be community effort. Let's all volunteer for it and bring out the marching band. Of course, social distance, and somehow figure out a way to put a small hole inside your mask so you can play your instrument. Let's see. Hey, there's Ani Brito. Hi, Ani. I know that people are afraid of a damn aspirin, but can't wait to take this blankety blank. The blankety blank will be what wakes more people up. Well, this is where we are. This is what's happening. People are waking up. They are waking up, and they want to put a lid on that as quickly as possible. Okay, why don't we do a little vacation here? And today I want to do something about just feeling grateful. To feel grateful for one thing in your life. One thing in your life. Just focus on that. Focus on feeling grateful for one thing. If not in this moment, some other moment throughout your day. Just take at least a minute to be grateful for one thing. One thing. Because I think that these are the things that are going to get us through the time that we're in. And then we can build upon what we're grateful for. And so I just want to put that out there before I do the invocation. All right, here we go. All right, dear blessed and holy Mother, Father God, of the great central sun, which is the universal light, which is the light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, and all the great avatars who, through their example, have awakened in the nightmare only to find more truth, more love, more transcendence. We ask that only the highest and best information, wisdom, intelligence, and truth come through this channel at this time for everyone participating, everyone viewing throughout this moment and throughout the rest of this day. And we affirm and decree that in this time, that the qualities of perseverance, of faith, of love, of gratitude, of creativity, imagination, novelty, courage, community, empathy, respect, self-respect, dignity, character, empathy, humor, courage, compassion, and love, that we affirm and decree that all of these qualities are with us at all times. If there is any karmic residue that we have, let it be clarified, purified, cleansed, and removed from this stream. Okay, let's go. I wanted to talk about, let me start with this email. Somebody sent me an email yesterday, which I thought was really good. Really, really good. And I'm going to leave out the semi-personal parts, but I want to get to the meat of the email. This is somebody who lived in a communist country and then moved to this country. And it's a moving email. So I want to read it, because the reason I want to read it is because this is somebody who knew what it was like to live somewhere else under very specific conditions, moved here, and now is beginning to re-experience those conditions. So it's important to have some perspective. It's important to understand where we are and what's taking place. All right. And there's a bigger question here, is what happens when you wake up? So here we go. I'm going to get to this part. My family emigrated from a communist country for freedom of thought, of rights as a person, of making one's own path in life without government intruding in your everyday life. Freedom of speech, a country where you debated ideas and concepts. I remember distinctly and fully comprehending, even at a very early age, that a person speaks one way in the house and with selected family members, and in a completely different way to anyone outside that circle. You never broke that line. What is going on now? What is going on now? People are being much more circumspect about what they share publicly. And this person is saying that that's the way you did it, where they lived. And then one day you wake up in your bed that resides in one of the states of the United States of America, and you realize that you're in the same environment you were in 45 years ago, in the communist country you left. Added on top of that, the division over the blankety-blank virus. There is no longer the haven you can find within some family or friends. They have all fallen away. May they be 15 or 50-year relationships. May they be mothers, fathers, sisters or brothers, best friends. Many a day I cry. I have learned to accept the crying bit and grieving for that minute or that hour. I allow myself the grief without prejudice. That's a great sentence. And then I feel my heart radiate. I expand the love outward from my heart. I am such. In the end, I made peace with the falling away of cherished loved ones with whom I've gone through such hard times. And we persevered in all those amazing times of great joy and laughter and the simple enjoyment of being in the other person's physical space. Now today, no matter what I put before them as a thought, as concept, as argument, I've not been able to sway them. Thus I fell away from them, or they fell away from me. I knew one thing for damn sure. There was a concept that this country was built upon. I do not care how it got here or what the underpinnings are. This country, in the collective mind of all human beings on the planet we call Earth, this country stands for one word: freedom. This is coming from somebody who wasn't even born here. This is amazing. You know, the most fucked up thing that my mind has been going through lately? Question mark. Why? Why the hell go through all this hardship of mind, emotion, and spirit to see openly the cage we are in? What the hell had to do with reality behind the veil? Why the hell to have open eyes and understanding, all the while living in the lie, in the unreality? This is the most fucked up science fiction book ever written. The suckiest part, I cannot put the book down at night on my nightstand, knowing that story is just a story and not my reality. There is no outlet of this science fiction novel. So then what the hell is and was the purpose of seeing truth? At the same time, I fundamentally still crave the truth. I'd rather see than be blind to the killer with the charming smile standing next to me with soul-felt joy in their eyes. I acknowledge the illusion of the killer in the charming package. But the question I have is, now what? I think that's a question that many of us have. I'm part of this email thread, and it's a lot of really interesting people and a lot of really smart people. And it sort of has this anti-communitarian focus. And I'm going to put a link in to this blog post. It was written by Clint Richardson. It's a great blog post. And I think it's from 2016, if I'm not mistaken, maybe late 2015. And it's about 10,000 words. And if you can get through it, I highly recommend it. And in a roundabout way, he asks the same question. And one of the things that he comes up with, which I've talked about quite a bit, is that what we're dealing with here is something that's parasitic. And what do you do when you realize that you're dealing with parasites? You're dealing with energetic parasites, spiritual parasites, mind parasites. How do you deal with that? How do you cut them out? Right? So again, once you get to this point where you realize that you've pretty much figured out where this thing is, where do you go next? So these are really important questions. And I don't think that there is necessarily an answer. I mean, there is an answer, but the answer is in our process and how we evolve through this. And I think that's part of the mystery, the paradox, and the frustration, and the being able to live in the question. I think that's the hardest thing, is to be able to live in the question. And it's one of those concepts that a lot of mystics talk about, to be able to live in the question. And if you live in the question, one of the things that it keeps you from doing is arriving at some kind of absolute truth, which is in some ways good. In some ways it's good, because what we believe is absolute truth isn't really absolute truth. I mean, we get to some things that I think are really powerful and really potent and really important. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I played a video of that scene at the White House. I got a bunch of emails that were sent to me. Hey, you didn't play the part with the fireworks. I'm like, what? What fireworks? And then they sent me a copy of the same video, and there are all these fireworks going off, like in the background. I'm like, where did that come from? Where did those? Because they weren't part of the video that I had. And by the way, if all those fireworks had gone off at that point in time in Washington, D.C., you could bet your ass, even at that time, that people with cell phone cams and in a panoptical society where everybody has some image capturing device at their disposal, you would have had at least 2, 3, 4 videos of all those fireworks happening. Yeah. So in my estimation, somebody put those in. That was an augmented reality moment. So again, like, here we go. Here's this piece of raw footage. And then later on in the day, oh, we've got fireworks. Right. So it's a microcosm of what I'm talking about. Here's this window of what we perceive to be an event happening. And again, I didn't put any meaning on what was happening. I thought it was interesting, and I tried to look at it from a number of different angles. But then once the fireworks came in, which I think were edited in, and that video was recirculated, now all of a sudden we have a meaning attached to it. Well, this is something. They're celebrating the fact that these people got arrested. Right. So even coming to something which may appear to be this version of an absolute truth gets distorted, or it may not be an absolute truth to begin with. So the harder part is living in the question. That's one of the harder pieces. And a lot of people have struggled with this. This is not a new phenomenon. You know, think of all the people that have had tragedy happen in their lives. Like real serious fucking tragedy. And they look at their lives and they say, I've been a good person. I've never cheated on my taxes. I've never cheated on my wife. I don't lie. I do all these things. I go to church, I pray. And then they have, just a shitstorm of tragedy in their life. And the question is, well, why does this happen to somebody who follows the rules and does all the right things and lives with a higher moral code and a moral compass? And it's almost as if they're being punished for whatever kind of correct action they take. This isn't anything new. Think of what it's like to live with something like that. Not to have to question. Think of what people now who are real Christians, who prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed over Trump and prayed over the election and prayed over all this stuff, right? And now they're having to see this version of reality. Where do you think they are? Where do you think they are with their faith? Now they've got to go to another level. It's like, well, God's got a plan. I just don't see it. I just don't understand it. So I'm just going to have faith and put one foot in front of the other. And there's some validity to that. But I think the harder part is to live with the question. And if the question becomes something that is too, what's the word I'm looking for? Too heavy in some ways, that you're paralyzed by the question. Maybe you need to lighten up on the question a little bit. Or maybe you need to have it be so heavy that you break through to the other side. But I think that's really the uncomfortable piece, is to live with the question and to not live with the most immediate answer. And I think that's one of the things that the QAnon phenomenon brought to people. It brought them immediate answers. And if the answer wasn't immediate, then it was going to happen or will happen. And for most people, that absolute truth, that bromide for the thing that they can't wrap their head around, which is being disempowered, that's been, very powerful for them. And the harder part is to live with the question. And to be able to live with the question and function successfully and function in the world with purpose and meaning. That's not easy. But we have to embrace that on some level. And the question, if we live with the question in an appropriate fashion, guess what? We will get answers. We may not get absolute truth or ultimate truth, but we'll get answers. They'll come to us. So this is for people who are living in doubt and who are trying to understand, why the fuck did I spend all this time trying to wake up? Don't give up. Because the alternative is not pretty. The alternative is that you're asleep and that you have absolutely no possibility for transformation and transcendence. And then once you wake up, there's no turning back. You have to keep going. And I saw this with my own father, and I've talked about this before. that there was a period of my life where my father and I were on the same page, and we were, going down rabbit holes, and it was really a good part of our relationship. It was happening in my mid 30s, and then all of a sudden he realized that he couldn't do anything, and then he disavowed everything. And guess what happened? He died shortly thereafter. He shut down. Once you go down the rabbit hole and you start coming back up, guess what you're going to encounter? You're going to encounter a lot of dirt coming back up, and you'll suffocate. And you have to keep going. It's just the way it is. You must keep moving forward. Living with the question is uncomfortable, but it's part of the process. And it's the one thing that keeps us in a state of being inquisitive, in wanting to understand, but also being able to live in a place where the understanding of the answers may not be always as immediate as we'd like them to be. Because we've seen the outcome of wanting that thing, right? That immediate thing. And the QAnon phenomenon was about that. We're dealing with something much bigger in a lot of ways. So I wanted to read you that email because it asks some very profound philosophical questions. And not only that, but this is a person who has perspective, and a perspective of what it's like to live in a certain place and to wake up and realize you're back in that place again. Are we coming up on Groundhog Day here pretty soon? I think we are. It's appropriate day for our time. I wanted to get into some other, and thank you, by the way, for that email. It's an important email, and I think a lot of us can relate to, right? A lot of us can relate to that. That's what happened to the Buddha, when he wakes up and he sees the illusions. He sees the Maya, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. But he keeps going. All right. I wanted to bring up an interesting story here. And this is unfortunately a trend now. And I'm going to start off with some of the dark stuff, and I'll try to bring you into something lighter here by the end. Okay, so hang in here. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this, but Brandon Straka, the guy, 44, there's that number, interesting number. That was Hank Aaron's number, 44, which we already talked about. The founder of the Walkaway social media campaign, who, by the way, they got their account suspended on Facebook. The campaign that encourages people to leave the Democratic Party has been charged in connection to the deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol. Brandon Straka, 44, was arrested by agents from the FBI Omaha field office on Monday. He was charged with impeding law enforcement officer during civil disorder, knowingly entering and remaining on restricted grounds without lawful authority, and or engaging in disorderly conduct within proximity to restricted building to impede official functions, and engaging in orderly conduct with the intent to disturb a hearing before Congress. Well, first of all, that is our building. Theoretically, that's our building. Like, theoretically, we should have access to that building. Those people represent, again, theoretically represent us. No more. The charges come less than 3 weeks after the violent January 6th Capitol Hill siege that led to the deaths of 5 people, including a U.S. Capitol police officer. FBI investigators said the day after the siege, Straka posted a nearly hour-long video on social media in which he said he learned on his way to Capitol Hill that patriots had entered the Capitol, and said he thought to himself, wow, so they're basically going to storm and try to get into the chamber so they can demand that we get the investigation that we want. Okay, so according to court documents, Straka made his way up the stairs to the Capitol building and saw nothing being broken and nobody committing any acts of violence. Okay, still waiting for it. The FBI agent in charge also said the Bureau received screenshots of Straka's tweets from the day of the riot in which he appeared to encourage and defend those who stormed the building. Patriots at the Capitol, hold the line, Straka said in one tweet. I don't know how you can interpret that as encouraging. I arrived at the Capitol a few hours ago as patriots were storming from all sides. I was quite close to entering myself as police began tear gassing us from the door. I inhaled tear gas and got it in my eyes. Patriots began exiting shortly after saying Congress had been cleared. He said in another. Also, be embarrassed and hide if you need to, but I was there. It was not Antifa at the Capitol. It was freedom-loving patriots who were desperate to fight for the final hope of our republic. Because literally nobody cares about them. Everyone else can denounce them. I will not. Okay, he's wrong about that. Sorry, Brandon. Well-meaning, but wrong. A witness who was not named in the documents sent a video to FBI investigators that allegedly shows Straka outside the Capitol building saying, we're going in, and later yelling, go, go, as people in front of him tried to shove their way inside. He's accused of yelling, take the shield, as a Capitol police officer held up his shield before it was snatched by the mob. Straka founded the Walkaway movement and described himself as a former liberal. His group's website says the campaign encourages and supports those on the left to walk away from divisive tenets endorsed and mandated by the Democratic Party of today. Straka's preliminary hearing has not yet been set. And these are federal charges. See, this is one of the problems that some of these folks, where'd I go? Oh. Whoops. There's two of me now. Wow. How did that happen? Okay. The problem is once you're on federal property, I did a little Gemini thing there. Once you're on federal property, you're going to be arrested by the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, right? So this is unfortunately kind of a big deal. The problem is that now we're living in a snitch culture, and people are more than willing to turn other people in. And the most sad evidence now is a kid that turned his father in for being at the so-called protest. And the kid's got something like $125,000 for a GoFundMe account now. And we already saw the daughter who turned the mother in. And what did she get? Like $75K on GoFundMe? So we're dealing with another level of the social programming, rewarding little snitches in our family to essentially out us. It's unfortunate, but again, I've talked about this. They've been groomed. They've been groomed on social media. They've been groomed in their classrooms. They've been groomed. They've had their brains reset and reprogrammed. They hit that serotonin rush when they get the like or the thumbs up or the retweet. And now they're getting money on GoFundMe. Do you think that other kids aren't paying attention? Of course they are. So we're seeing people now like Brandon Straka, and they're going to be others. They're just going to drill down in that moment for all those people who were protesting in a way that theoretically you should be able to protest. Theoretically. That's what the country was based on, was protest. And a lot of protests happening or happened over the summertime. Some very, quote unquote, peaceful protests, which weren't. So he's on ice now. And who will stand for Brandon Straka at this point? Not many people. Not at this point in time. But I tell you who will stand for something and who are standing for something. That is the residents of California who have come very close to recalling Gavin Newsom. This is interesting. This is very interesting. Now, we're going to see how much the state can game their process. Because we saw this with Christine Whitler up in Michigan, where basically they just shut down the website where you could actually post your signatures to recall her. And in fact, I think there is that petition in Michigan is still happening. And by the way, Whitler, just like Newsom, has begun to lift a lot of the restrictions. So recall campaign to remove Governor Gavin Newsom is almost reaching its required threshold to pass a statewide ballot. Over the weekend, recall organizers said they have gathered 1.2 million of the required 1.5 million signatures needed by March 17 to qualify for a ballot. Per state law, petition sponsors have to gather the signatures of 12% of the voter turnout in California's previous statewide election, which is around 1,495,709 names. Rescue California, one of two central groups building the campaign, says they aim to get 2 million signatures to account for the fact that many of the signatures will surely prove invalid. Yes, you've got to get above and beyond the number. California's Secretary of State has approved 84% of the signatures gathered so far as valid. There's now a pretty good chance Newsom will be the second governor in California history to face a recall election. Exciting news for the porn stars, former child stars, and other randos who want to be on the gubernatorial ballot with no limit on candidates. If the recall qualifies, Newsom would be forced to fend off rivals in the midst of a pandemic, quote unquote, that has cost the state millions of jobs, core government budgets, and upended life for nearly 40 million residents. This is the sixth recall effort the Democratic governor has met in 2 years. Once considered a pipe dream in the solidly blue state, this latest recall attempt gained traction in the last year due to growing discontent over the governor's approach to the coronavirus pandemic and its impact on the economy. Isn't that interesting that it's the same thing that really was Trump's demise, and it's now Newsom's potential demise? Fascinating. It's a little Gemini for you. So if you live in California, why not just get on this thing and add your signature? Even if you don't believe in the process, just add your signature to this referendum. It's absolutely gaining traction. We're getting petitions not only from Republicans, but from Democrats and independents. John Cox, Newsom's 2018 Republican challenger, who recently started an exploratory committee to challenge the governor again in 2022, explained last week this has gone on too long, the mismanagement that has accompanied this pandemic. Look, just make his life hell. Just make him run for a fucking re-election before he's supposed to. Make him spend some money. Make him go out and defend himself. At the very least, put him through the paces. Though if he faces a recall, Newsom would have advantages. He would no donation limits on his fundraising, opening the way for a record flood of cash to defend his seat, which he'll keep, by the way, even if he loses. Democrats have a nearly 2-to-1 advantage in registered voters. Public frustration rose in November when the governor was filmed at the upscale French Laundry restaurant in Napa amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Newsom met a lot of criticism on social media as well for the violations of his own rules. One Twitter user wrote, "It's clear now that the panic move of arbitrarily closing outdoor dining with zero proof that was causing the spike in cases was baseless. All Newsom accomplished is to devastate local restaurants, put employees out of work for the holidays, blah, blah, blah." We know all of that, right? So at the very least, make his life difficult. Make his life difficult. Make him defend his position, even if he gets all the money and gets to keep his money from the Gettys and all the people who can donate once again to Gavin Newsom's fund. Make it difficult for him. Throw in a little chaos into the guy's life. Why not? The last time this happened, of course, was when the governor was Gray Davis. And I've talked about this before. The reason why Gray Davis was recalled wasn't because he was a bad governor. It was because he was sitting on top of all the information and the evidence that Enron colluded with former Governor Pete Wilson to basically shut down California's power grid and bring Enron energy into California so that Enron can make a shitload of money and Pete Wilson can make a shitload of money. And there was a meeting between Pete Wilson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kenneth Lay, and who was the other one? It was Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett. All four of those guys were seen at a hotel in Beverly Hills, and they were all meeting prior to Schwarzenegger running for governor amongst all these other people, including the former porn star. So the only reason why they wanted Schwarzenegger to get in as governor was so that he could bury the evidence. And Gray Davis knows all about this. He knows all about it. He knows what happened. He knows that that's why he was moved out of office, and they probably paid him a nice fee in addition to showing him a number of pictures that he probably can't unsee to keep his mouth shut. That's why Schwarzenegger went in. So now you've got another recall situation. Just, you know what, even if you don't believe in the process, just make his life hell. And apparently the so-called Biden administration, whatever this thing is furious at Newsom for, lifting, the restrictions. And he's doing it because, well, number one, I think he's seriously concerned. I do think he's concerned. And you think that these politicians can't be moved, that they have this kind of titanium sort of exterior and a titanium heart. That's not true. Because I know for a fact that here at a local level, through the grapevine, we have found out that the people who are on the city council here in this town are terrified. They're terrified of the people waking up now. It's gotten back to us through personal conversations. They're very concerned. So don't think that these people aren't afraid. They do have fear, even though some of them may not appear to be human. And I'll show you a little bit of that a little bit later on. So if you're in California, why not sign the petition, or sign the petition. Just work it. Just do it. Make the guy do something besides shut your life and shut your businesses down. Have an open dialogue about it. Bring things out in the open. Chaos is good in an instance like this. Get into the super conjunction. Be that Aquarian spirit that can organize through Saturnian means. Well, they, in their Saturnian spirit, try to put the lid on your ability to want to voice your collective opinion or your collective point of view. This is the dynamic we're in now. The revolution is still on. It's a revolution of the mind, and it's a revolution of the spirit. What else did I want to point out today? Yeah, I think the Newsom thing is interesting. Okay, so just to let you know, give you an idea. Now, I have not followed up on this, and I'll do that today when I have some time. And what's interesting is that they're using the language of so-called executive actions, and executive orders. Here are the executive orders Biden has signed so far. So here we go. President Biden, I'm not even Joe Biden. Let's call him Joe Biden. Joe Biden, whoever this guy is, has signed a flurry of executive orders, actions, and memorandums aimed at rapidly addressing the coronavirus pandemic and disarming or dismantling many Donald Trump's policies. He's taken 33 executive actions in 6 days. Wonder how many more. I wonder how long we'll be able to cap this thing at 33. Now, he says, they say here, executive actions. They're not executive orders. Now, are these the ones that have been moved into the executive order space? But essentially what he's done is he's signed more executive actions / orders, whatever this pantomime that he's doing. He's signed more of them than the last 4 presidents combined. Whatever these things are, he's signed more of them. By the way, if you pay attention, whoever this Joe Biden is, he signs these documents with both hands. Some of which he's right-handed and some of which he's left-handed. I'll try to find some of that video tonight. So tomorrow we can look at him. Is he ambidextrous? Question mark. So who or what is Joe Biden? That's the big question. I want to return to the debates. The first debate with Donald Trump. And I want to play one of my favorite. He's not a YouTuber anymore. He used to be. He's a bit shooter. And this is the Mag Nation guy. This is the guy. I think is he Haitian or Jamaican? I love this guy. And this video is about 6 minutes long. And I want to play it because it's entertaining, number one. But number two, it's really bizarre. And while the debate happened, and even after the debate happened, we were trying to look at what the hell is going on with Joe Biden, with this thing in his sleeve. Like, is that a microphone? Is that wiring that's part of the, the exoskeleton, like the thing that Bush had on his back when he did all the debates, whatever the hell that thing was? I have no idea what that was. Whether it was a communication device, whether it was an adrenochrome pump, who the fuck knows? Do you remember when Bush, back when he was president, you would see this like exoskeleton thing on his back? All right, so I'm going to play this because, number one, it's entertaining. It's entertaining as hell. We need a little entertainment. Number two, again, it brings up the question, who are we dealing with here? Who are we really dealing with here? All right. So it's about 6 minutes long. Just sit back, be entertained, and ask yourself the question, what the hell is going on? And what kind of reality are we actually occupying at this point in time? Here we go.
Now, I see in this video right here, a little clip. Somebody sent me a video. Shout out to Laurie and YouTube doing video. Yeah, true channel. But She the one who break this one down for what it is and get into it basically. But I'm gonna have to go ahead and get a look at this shit right here and take a look at it and see, because if you see Joe Biden right here, this is not a fake video. This is a real video right here from C-SPAN with the damn debate with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And look at this shit right here come out of the fucking Joe Biden right there, come out of his suit. And what he did, he gonna shake it back down in right there. Take a look, because you have to pay attention right here. I'm gonna break it all the way down. I got some photos I'm gonna show of it. But let's look right here and see what it is. Take a look. Wow, them shits is alive. That shit is alive. He kind of look like he's shaking his hand a little bit, but them shits is alive. What is that, people? These are not human beings. What's wrong with you? Look at this person. That's not a human being, people. I already told you. A lot of times I look at them and be like, damn, you have to be wearing a mask or something. Why would you have this shit around your eyes? That's not how people get old and look. This is a dumb shit right here, people. Look at his jaw. There's no wrinkle on the jaw, no skin hanging. But when you get to his eyes right there, it look kind of funny. These are not human beings. Take a look, people. What is this come out of his arms right there? Now take a look, people. I kind of slow it down a little bit. Take a look at what they're gonna happen to them. Watch this. Go back. Let's go back. Wow. Those are not antennas, people. Wow, you would have think it's some wires or something, but no. No, people, them shit look like live little serpents. It kind of look like a damn cobra right there. The small little cobra looking head. And then it fell.
He's right. This thing looks like a little cobra. You can actually see the eyes. It's coiling. I hate to admit it. I don't hate to admit it, actually. But this thing is animated. It is animated. All right, let's keep going.
Fell back down, people. This is a real shit. Wow. So this character, I already told you, people, why they all in the devil horns right there. These are not human beings they put to run the country, people. Wow, you already know this one. This is not a human being either. That's what you need to know, people. They're not humans. Wow, so those are the ones who run in this fucking world. That's how you get it right there, people. What is that coming out of his clothing? You never get it, people. That's a human being. Wow, go back. Go back.
I want to move on to another because it's a political one to another subject.
Did you see that thing? It like pops its head up and then it drops back down into his sleeve.
I wanted to go on to another subject. I got to respect. Those states are not doing well that are shut down.
Wow, let's go back.
If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors.
You don't need to hear them talk, but pay attention, people. Wow, and wow. A matter of fact, let it play. Listen what Donald Trump saying. Pay attention. Watch the eyes of the Joe Biden. And then he gonna raise up the arm right there, people. Watch this right here. Pay attention. Wow, pay attention. Look at his fucking face right there, people. Wow, take a look at this right here. That's not a human being. Those are the ones they use to run the world and the masses right there in plain sight. What do you think this is, people? Wow, let's go back to his hands. Take a look at this right here, people. You gotta be kidding me. Wow, what is those things that go back in the jacket? Wow, people. That's not wires. He hold his hand like that. They come up. They got fuck up and show up, people. Right there. That's not a human being. The people that's running the country is not a real human being, people. Wow, what is these creatures that so-called leading the masses? Who are they? That's not a human being, people. Who is these people they put to in charge of the world? How much time you hear me say they're not real humans? There you go, your proof right there. What is that right there come from him? You ever see some alien movies, some weird kind of shit? And you see the tenants right there? There you go, people. It's not a human being. What happened is just showing this farm to show up on the people, and it can also change into something else. That's some tenants right there coming from the sleeves, people, and they go back in as soon as they see light. They go back in, people. Watch this. Take a look at this shit right here. What is that? Wow, wow, wow. That's alive, people. It's alive. That's not just wire. That's something alive. They're alive right there, people. Wow. They're not human beings. Bam. There we go right here. Let's see, people. We can zoom it all the way up. But look at that shit right there, people. That's not a wire. And like you see, it was two of them, people. Take a look at this shit right here while he holding the devil horns. Right there, the devil people. The fallen angels right there in the fucking flesh. This is what they give you right here for the president of the country. You see that all world leaders is probably one of these right here. You never get it, people. Fallen angel bloodline right here in plain sight. What you think? It's no trick, people. There you go. He come out and go back in the sleeve real fast. Wow, they realize that the people gonna see it. There you go right there, people. That's not wires. What is that? It's tenants, not antennas. That's tenants right there, people. This is a creature right here running the country they call Joe Biden. Wow, show up in the black and white tie right there. Wow, for Freemasonry. You see it, people? They're the one who running the world. It's not a joke. You see it right there, people. Joe Biden is not a human being. Share this to everybody.
I know that's entertaining. He's funny, but it really is bizarre. And it validates on some level that the only people who could do what they do to the rest of us aren't people. And I've held this for a very long time. Like, I came to this conclusion in the 90s when I sat down and I looked at what was going on. It's like the only way that people could be as inhumane to people as they possibly could be, they're not people, they're not humans. And this is where it's connected with this mind virus, because as a result of their inhumanity to humanity, people have responded to this mind virus that they have literally injected most of the planet with. And this has nothing to do with so-called CV-19 or anything like that. So when you have a kid who turns his father in for being at the Capitol, that is an example of the mind virus at work. It is socio-pathological behavior. And people have been inculcated into sociopathological behavior so that they can theoretically survive or thrive or get whatever kind of benefit results with that. And so they've managed to turn humans into non-humans along the way. And I'm sure that there are bits and pieces of tangential material that has contributed to this rapid transformation in the de-evolution of society. And we can go chapter and verse from GMOs to the V word, to frequencies, to geoengineering, which has accelerated our decline in a lot of ways. Not all of us, but people that have been overtaken by this mind virus, right? I saw a pretty interesting 24-minute piece on Chaco Canyon yesterday. And Chaco Canyon has some very interesting petroglyphs. And if you look at some of the petroglyphs around Chaco Canyon, you will see that it depicts strange creatures. And nearly every single one of them is drawn next to a spiral. The idea here is that they're telling a story of strange creatures that came through that spiral, that came through that vortex. And if you follow sort of the path of the Anasazi, who are, by the way, part of the Chaco Canyon, part of the Chaco Canyon archaeology and anthropology, they eventually leave and they start to build these massive cliff-dwelling places. Like high, like they're doing them for a reason, like they're getting up off the ground for a reason. So essentially what they're talking about, what this video talks about, it's Tom Horn. It's a Tom Horn video, is that there are correlations to some of the creation stories that have been passed down from the Anasazi through the Hopi and even the Comanche, apparently, that are resonant or consonant with some of the tales in the Old Testament about creatures like giants in the so-called Nephilim. Like they show up at Chaco Canyon, and then they show up in some of these creation stories that are part of an oral tradition. And if that's true, and I do believe that there's some truth behind this, that these people never left, that these so-called beings never left, and that what Mag is talking about vis-a-vis the bloodline or the serpent bloodline, I think is quite evident and quite real. And I don't know how far this technology has progressed in that they're able to take over somebody who resembles to be Joe Biden, because that's really not Joe Biden. And I know a lot of people think that the ear thing is a result of some kind of plastic surgery, because the ears are very different. Very, very different. They're attached and then they're not attached. But I think it would be easy to create a version of Biden, reanimate him. I mean, look, I think that there's a whole level of reality that people are just not aware of. And it's difficult to kind of talk about this stuff because now we're getting into the woo. Now we're getting into the things that, oh, okay, well, go ahead and prove that. Right now we're kind of getting into QAnon territory, but this is not something that's anything new. People have been talking about this for quite a while, and I think that's ultimately what we're up against. This is what we're up against. We're up against essentially something that is not human. Look at Klaus Schwab. That motherfucker's not human. All these world leaders and Angela Merkel, none of them have any human traits. None of them have any real empathy. None of them have any real compassion. Whether it's Putin or Merkel, and even Trump over the last year, and maybe I'd say the last 6 months, Trump makes a shift during the coronavirus, and he's not the same guy. He doesn't attack with the same vigor. He's just not the same person. I'm telling you, he's not the same person. And you could tell early on in the coronavirus where he's trying to present a different kind of scenario, and that gets shut down very, very quickly. And then after that, he's saying, well, it was great to be your president. I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve you. I mean, what the fuck is all that about? Something happened. Something happened in that process. And whether it was they got to him or he does not appear to be the same person. Doesn't appear to be the same person. At least energetically and at least from what we saw of him during the first 2 years. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us in a pretty precarious position in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it also is I think, fairly empowering that we understand, theoretically who the enemy is. The enemy is not human. The enemy is not human. And they spread their mind virus to people who are theoretically human. And the mind virus is a combination of programming, trauma, grooming. I hate to use the word cultivation because cultivation would express something much more, I don't know, higher in terms of its intent. Let me show you guys something. If I can find it. What did this cross my path here? Oh my God, that's funny. Wow. Wow. That's interesting. Sorry, I'm on I just opened a picture with Joe Biden. Interesting. It's a picture of the guy with earlobes and Joe Biden. I'll show this to you guys. It wasn't what I was looking for, but I'll show it to you anyway. Hold on one second. So this is Joe Biden, and this is Joe Biden, and she was the babysitter, and she was a teenager at the time. Check out the earlobes. See, not attached. Not attached. Anyway, that's just a pit stop. I just wanted to show that to you. That's not really what I wanted to show you, but it came across my screen. Okay, let me find what I did want to show you. Da, 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 da. Now, this came from September. Where was it? It's a video of a guy who is in, let me see if I can find this. No. It's a video of a guy who's in a convenience store in Waco. Have you guys seen this video? He's in a convenience store in Waco, and a cop comes in with a taser because he's not wearing a mask. And he arrests him for not wearing a mask. But it's not just an arrest; it's the violence of it. I mean, he doesn't do anything to him physically, but the emotional content is extremely violent. I can't find it. I'll try to find it tomorrow. I don't want to. Unfortunately, I did not make a tab with this thing. But what I wanted to do is that I wanted to show you sort of how this mind virus actually works and turns people into these soulless agents of the Matrix. Okay. I'll bring it back tomorrow. We'll look at it tomorrow. Let's see. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up. What was it? Oh, yeah. So Tulsi Gabbard is quite interesting at this point. And this is one of the things that I talked about with Jay on the show that we did on Saturday. Keep your eye on Tulsi Gabbard. Now, again, a lot of this tends to be programming, because if somebody didn't want Tulsi Gabbard to get the publicity and get the press, it wouldn't be happening. So always remember that. Always remember that. But let's look at it anyway. Former presidential candidate and Democratic Rep Tulsi Gabbard slammed a domestic terror bill proposed by Adam Schiff, saying it would target half of the country, and called on President Biden to denounce such efforts. The Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2021 was introduced in the House last week following mostly peaceful protests in the U.S. Capitol that got out of control. Democrats, in response to the rioting that took place, are seeking to expand the definition of domestic terrorism. Gabbard, Hawaii, she's no longer representative, in an interview with Fox News primetime host Brian Kilmeade, called the bill so dangerous and noted it would mostly be targeting a certain group of people. The legislation would create a very dangerous undermining of our civil liberties, our freedoms, and our Constitution, and the targeting of almost half of the country. Now, she actually asked Biden if we are in a state of martial law. That was another kind of headline from the Tulsi Gabbard world. Tulsi Gabbard has emerged as like the one person who is speaking up and speaking out, even though she isn't even really a part of theoretically the government anymore. It's probably a good thing. But she's getting press. Why is she getting press? That's the question. Because if she wasn't able to get FaceTime and be on Fox and be able to state the obvious, which is what she's doing, and more power to her, I don't think they'd have any kind of skin in the game to promote her. But it's happening. And this is why I said to Jay on Saturday that I think she'll be president of the United States at some point. She's being groomed publicly for that. I don't have any problem with it. At the very least, she's talking about things that nobody else can touch. Why? She's outside the system. She's outside the system. She's not a Republican. Theoretically, she's not really a Democrat. Most Democrats are just telling her, just go become a Republican. She's not in office. So she's outside the system. And she has a voice. I'm okay with it. I don't necessarily entirely trust it, because I know how these things work. You don't get a platform and you don't get a voice unless somebody's promoting you. But at the same time, I'm okay with it, because at the very least, it's out there. And at the very least, we have somebody who's articulating what needs to be articulated at a public level. And I actually like Tulsi Gabbard, even though at times she feels a little bit mind controlled to me. And I'll always be forever grateful for her disassembling of Kamala Harris during the debates. Tore her apart. Absolutely tore her apart. Absolutely derailed her campaign. Kamala Harris had 1%. She had a 1% popularity rating. 1%. And I think that they wanted Kamala to be president. That was their ticket. And Tulsi Gabbard, her opposite sign, Aries, threw a huge monkey wrench in it. And you can tell that was not planned, at least not on Kamala Harris's side. She was visibly upset and visibly disturbed when Tulsi Gabbard called her out on her record, her appalling record in the state of California. And that was it. I think she did one more debate after that, and she was done. Her campaign was just a smoldering wreck on the side of the road. So they had to get her in somehow. And eventually the decision was made. Unilaterally, it's going to be Joe Biden. Happened in that South Carolina stop, and he didn't lose a primary moving forward. They should have told you the whole thing was rigged from that point moving forward. And stubbornly, people like, Elizabeth Warren kind of held out a little bit. Got what they wanted. Amy Klobuchar kind of got what they wanted. They did little deals. They got what they wanted. Bernie Sanders held out to the end so he get as much campaign money as he possibly could. By the way, did you see where the mittens that he wore during the so-called inauguration? The woman who made those mittens, she's out of business now because the taxes, the heavy taxation on her business, put her out of business. So I guess symbolically, Bernie Sanders had a hand in it. At the end of our time here today, have we come to any fast answers? Have we come to any absolute truths? Perhaps not. But I think it's fair to say that whatever's happening, whatever's taking place, whoever's orchestrating these events, they're not human. They are not human, because if they were human, they wouldn't be doing it. And the ones who are aiding and abetting them, they've been taken over by a virus, a socio-pathological virus. And that virus has given them permission to do whatever they need in order to get ahead and stay in the game. In some cases, they've even been programmed or traumatized to go one step further, right? So if they're not human, which I believe that to be the case, or if they don't display any human tendencies, then what is the answer? Hang on to your humanity. Do not abandon your humanity. That's important. That's really important, because buried in your humanity is your divinity. And once you abandon your humanity, your divinity has no chance or no opportunity to express itself. It has none. Your humanity is a conduit for the divine. And that's what they do. That's what they want you to do. They want you to abandon your humanity. Let me just read this one section of the email again. You want to know how do you stay in touch with your humanity? Here you go. I'll read it. Let me find this thing. Hold on, I almost have it here. Okay. Here it is, right here. Added on top of that, the division over the CV, there is no longer the haven you can find within some family or friends. They have all fallen away, May they be 15-year or 50-year relationships. May they be mothers, fathers, sisters, or brothers, best friends. Many a day I cry. I've learned to accept the crying bit in grieving for that minute or that hour. I allow myself the grief without prejudice. And then I feel my heart radiate. I expand that love outward from my heart. I am such in the end. I make and made peace with the falling away of cherished loved ones with whom I've gone through such hard times. And we persevered in all those amazing times of great joy and laughter in the simple enjoyment of being in the other person's physical space. But I think the important part of this email is about being able to grieve, and to be able to grieve all the way through so that you stay in touch with your heart, stay in touch with your humanity, because your humanity is a gateway to your divinity. And if you give that up, then it just has no place to go. So remember that, and find one thing today to be grateful for. I'm going to say it right now. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to share and to be able to connect dots and, speak into this little camera. I'm grateful for the opportunity to help people and to be able to use whatever gifts God has given me in this lifetime to the best of my ability. And I'm grateful for that. And that's my public declaration for today. And I hope you guys can find something that you're grateful for today as well. And listen, if you feel down and you feel depressed, or you feel like, shit is just heavy, just go with it. Just go with it. Don't stay there, but just go with it. Just let it come through you and get to the other side of it. Right? Do your best not to be an automaton. I think that's really the true lesson here. All right. Look, this is an evolving situation. Even though we are dealing with a lot of fixed energy with Aquarius, with Mars and Taurus, with Uranus and Taurus, there's a lot of fixed energy, but the situation is a situation that's moving. We are not trapped in a glacial environment right now, cryogenically suspended. So keep moving, stay fluid, and stay in touch with your humanity. It's the gateway to your divinity. All right, I'm out of here for today. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step in what's possible. Don't let the serpents and the vampires get you down. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day.